fired from your job. I did lose my job. My relationship with God changed. People cutting them out of their lives don't understand why I'm Catholic at all. You will be completely alone. Fears of becoming Catholic, these are realities of awful things that will happen. Hey guys, it's Lizzie. This video is the 10 scariest parts of converting into Catholicism. Losing your career, losing your faith community. You are suddenly completely alone in a new church. Catholic churches are not the strongest when it comes to community. For probably the first year, I was unable to have any conversations about spirituality and faith with my parents. The one person who was there for me, I might lose. Being ostracized for beliefs that I would immediately get canceled. We have no idea who's in heaven and who's in hell and who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, and a peasant and not knowing anything. I want to start by giving a caveat and reading a Bible verse. So this is from 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So this probably is really invalidating to any of you who are going through all of these emotions right now. But the reason I chose this verse to start off the video is to show that it gets better. Initially, it is so scary, and these are legitimate things to worry about that will directly impact and negatively affect your life. I just hope that in making this video, I will be able to either, one, prepare you all for what is coming, and to emotionally validate what you're currently going through, how awful it feels right now. And I say the word feels because it does get better. Perfect love drives out fear. The closer you get to God, the more you fall in love with all of this process, the less scary all of these objectively awful things will be. Another thing that I hope you guys get out of this video is how true the Catholic faith is, that I was willing to go through all of these awful things, scary things, because I believe so strongly that the Catholic Church is the original church that Jesus established, that Jesus' apostles established in the 1st century. I believed that so strongly, I believed in the evidence so strongly that I was willing to go through these scary, awful, painful things to become Catholic. And tens of thousands of other Catholic converts have been willing to do the same. Christians in the early church and during the persecutions by the Romans were literally tortured and brutally murdered for the faith. And so there are still so many sacrifices that are involved in becoming a Christian, in becoming Catholic, in becoming united with his church, and in living out your faith. And so it makes sense that there are things that will be so scary and intimidating and awful. It is not easy to be a Christian. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Lizzie's Answers. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell button next to the subscribe button so that you get notifications every time I upload a new video and every time that I live stream. Before we get into the video, I have a surprise for you guys. I am having my Lent merch launch. This is my first merch I have ever put out, and it is Lent themed merch. So linked below, go check it out, see if you want to buy it. I have my iconic for Lent, I'm giving up the Protestant Reformation on mugs, t-shirts, stickers, so go check it out. Also, make sure to be following me on Instagram and Twitter. I love talking to you guys every single day and updating you on what I'm doing, being able to DM you guys about what you're going through, and getting video requests from my social medias as well. Number 1, losing your career. I just wanted to start it off by being real. This is an actual situation that I was in, that Scott Hahn was in, that so many converts are currently in, of people who are wanting to become Catholic. The reality is that if you work at a Protestant church or in a Protestant ministry, if that is your job, and then you are wanting to become Catholic, you will get fired from your job. You will have to step down from your job. You will lose your career. I was in that situation. I was supposed to move to Thailand to be a missionary. It was this church that I had worked at for every summer of when I was in college, and I was planning to live there for 3 to 5 years, maybe permanently live there. and I lost that opportunity. I was fired from that opportunity when I chose to start looking into the Catholic faith, and also I was really scared that I would lose all my YouTube subscribers when I announced that I was becoming Catholic. I had been making Protestant YouTube videos for 8 years, and so I was so scared to finally come out with the video why I'm becoming Catholic. And God blessed me above and beyond what I could have imagined by bringing so many new subscribers to my channel and allowing me to continue my career as a YouTuber. But I did lose my job as a missionary in Thailand. I almost lost my job as a YouTuber, and I received literally so many messages from Protestant ministers. A lot of times their wife is a stay-at-home mom, they have kids, they have a family, and he's the sole provider for the family, and he works at a Protestant church, and the whole family wants to become Catholic, but he will literally lose his job. And again, there are so many women in Protestant ministry positions as well. It's really scary having to trust God when it comes to financially providing for your family, especially when a whole family is involved. Number 2 is losing your faith community. I encountered this because of the church I was going to become a part of fired me, and I lost all those relationships. It's so sad. I still follow a lot of those people on Facebook and Instagram, and I see posts from their church, and it hurts so much that I lost all these people. I had fallen in love with this community and formed so many really close friends, and I trusted these people, and I wanted to sacrifice everything to help them grow in the faith and bring more people into their community. And so losing that was really awful and painful, and it can still make me cry today. And so as you'll see throughout the video, these aren't just fears of becoming Catholic, these are realities of awful things that will happen. Having to stop attending the congregation that you are currently attending every single Sunday, Wednesday, whenever your church is meeting, you're going to church, you're being within this community. Suddenly you are physically leaving those people and leaving that community. And obviously some of those people are going to cut you off and ditch you and no longer want any kind of relationship or fellowship with you because you ditched them and left Christianity. A lot of them will see it as leaving Christianity and not be in your life anymore. Even if it's not that extreme, I'm not trying to scare you guys, I'm just sharing realities of messages I read all the time of real things that happen to people. And even if people don't directly cut you out of their lives, it's just the fact that every single week, instead of going to church, going to Bible class, hanging out, going to church excursions with these people who you have come to love and become family-like with, instead you're joining a whole other community of people who you do not know. So just objectively, you're going to be spending a lot less time with these people because you're not going to be going every single week to all the events having to do with your church. Number 3 is not having a faith community. It's so intimidating coming into a brand new, it feels like a brand new religion, even though it is Christianity. It's the same Christianity in a lot of ways, but it feels like a totally different religion. It's a culture shock going to mass after going to a Protestant service for your entire life. And it's intimidating too, because a lot of Catholic churches are not the strongest when it comes to community. In Protestant churches, often people will stay 30 minutes after church and just talk to people and greet visitors, and they have all of these fellowship programs going on of small groups. Everyone's in a small group or a life group or a house group. And at Catholic churches, there's less of a focus on fellowship. And so it's just scary going into a situation where you don't know if you'll make a lot of friends, if you'll be able to have as close of a community as you had before at your Protestant church. I was really lucky when I became Catholic because I joined RCIA where I made a lot of friends. I joined our church's Bible study where I made a lot of friends and I got involved. So I really encourage you guys to join as many activities as possible at your church. I'm also a really social person. I am not an introvert, I'm an extrovert. It's so easy for me to talk to people. So I would literally sit by random people during Mass and talk to them after Mass, and we would become friends and get to know each other. But for a lot of people who are more introverted, it's so intimidating suddenly being completely alone. You are suddenly completely alone in a new church, and you don't have that community. Number 4 is losing spiritual relationships in your life. For probably the first year, I was unable to have any conversations about spirituality and faith with my parents because it was too painful for them, and we diverged when it comes to theology, and so they don't understand why I'm Catholic at all. They can't understand that journey, even though I've tried so hard to explain it to them. And so my family in particular always connected the absolute most over theology, and so suddenly I was in a situation when I was in RCIA and told them I was becoming Catholic where we no longer were able to calmly talk about religion, and things have kind of changed. Now we can have really, really intense, emotionally loaded debates about it, which is better than nothing. I like that we're actually talking. But for a while, I wasn't able to share the most important parts of my life with the people closest to me, with my parents. And even with my Protestant friends, we're on different wavelengths when it comes to our church's theology, and they just don't understand certain things like the Eucharist and the Rosary. I can't just openly talk about things going on in my relationship with God because they just won't understand them. And having that separation is just really, really sad, especially when there are so many Protestants in your life who you are so close to. Number 5 is the fear of losing your relationship with God and your relationship with God dramatically changing. I was really scared that my devotional practices, like madly annotating my Bible, doing intense scripture readings, the impromptu way that I prayed, even the way I knew God, what I believed about God, I was so scared that in Catholicism, it would strip away my understanding of God and my devotional practices. And it has been the most refreshing thing that instead of getting rid of anything, it just added on additional devotional options. I still pray in the same way, I still read my Bible in the same way, I still have my one-on-one quiet time with God. I did not lose that in any way, but it just added on hundreds of more options of how to spend time with God. And I will say though, things have changed a lot with the way I read the Bible and the way I view the Bible. I read the Bible more in group settings, more in Bible study and small groups with people at my church than on my own. And I read the Bible a lot more through saint writings, because when you read Aquinas or Augustine or Chrysostom or Irenaeus, they are constantly quoting the Bible. So when you read saint writings, when you read church father writings, when you read the Catechism, when you read a church document, they are constantly quoting the Bible. Like half of all of those things is just straight up Bible verses. And so it's less me reading my Bible on my own and more me reading the Bible through other things interpreting the Bible, through Chrysostom homilies, through Aquinas talking about things, through different saints, through the Catechism. And so it's not that I'm not reading the Bible anymore, but I'm reading the Bible differently. Does that make sense? I'm reading it in other Catholic things. So it changed. My relationship with God changed. I did lose things and I gained things, and that was really scary because I felt like God was the only common thing in what I was going through. He was the only one who understood every single aspect of my heart and my mind and my soul and why I was doing this crazy thing and why I was doing this scary, dramatic change in my life. He was the only one who was constantly there for me, and I grew so much closer to God in the process, and that was amazing. But it was so scary going into it, thinking that the one person who was there for me, I might lose. I know that's kind of a confusing one because obviously it's the same God, but the way we view God and the way we worship God, it is different. Number 6, going from being a theology expert and being so knowledgeable in all of the doctrines of your church, knowing so much about the Bible, into being a theology noob, a peasant, and not knowing anything. When I was Protestant, I knew the Bible, and I still know the Bible really, really well. I was a religion major in college. I learned all about the Greco-Roman culture, Second Temple Judaism, Greek etymology. I learned all of these methods of interpreting the Bible, and I knew the Bible so well. And I'd been teaching people, teaching Bible class since like elementary school, constantly in college, leading ministry. I was put in charge. I was in these leadership positions. But suddenly in Catholicism, and I think this is even harder for people who are pastors of churches or theology professors, it must be even harder for them. And I can't imagine how hard that would be because it was hard for me. But suddenly you're put in RCIA and you're being taught as if you're a child. And I don't mean that they're condescending to you in RCIA. Like my RCIA, my priest actually intellectually respected me so much, and he knew coming in that I had done a lot of my own research. But still, it's this idea that compared to any cradle Catholic, they have so much knowledge about church history and the saints and the 2,000 years of the Catholic Church. And I knew nothing about church history and about the saints coming into the church. And I know you guys respect me a lot intellectually for my YouTube videos, but when it comes to 2,000 years of knowing all the saints, all the popes, all the philosophy, I'm a peasant. I'm still a peasant. I barely know anything because I just got into this, and my entire life I knew so much. Recently in September, I was placed in a campus ministry position in my archdiocese, and so I'm actually able to lead Bible studies now. And I lead Bible studies at my parish sometimes in our Bible study group, and I lead RCIA sometimes. And so it's amazing going from being a noob and a peasant. Now I'm a peasant still, but I have like a peasant ring on. So that's how Trevor describes it to me. He accepts it too. This one is not necessarily scary, it's just humiliating, and it's really, really humbling that, you know, you were this spiritual leader, you were constantly teaching everyone, and now you're an RCIA, and you're a catechumen, and you're a baby Catholic. And now I'm a toddler Catholic, but I'm still a toddler Catholic. Number 7 is being ostracized for beliefs on Catholic sexual ethics and being pro-life. Especially if you're a millennial, if you're young, it is so countercultural, and you will be called a bigot, a misogynist, homophobic, transphobic if you just believe the basics of what the Catholic Church teaches regarding our entire sexual ethics and regarding being pro-life. I've actually heard a lot of stories of people who, upon someone becoming Catholic or sharing their beliefs on sex and abortion, people cutting them out of their lives, not being friends with them anymore because they hold these beliefs. And so it is so hard being a millennial and thinking the way I am and having to tell people in my life that I had changed my beliefs on things, and them seeing me as being against justice and going backwards in my thinking and having beliefs that are hurtful towards groups of people. I was very, very liberal on all these issues before I became Catholic. I was pro-choice. I was making YouTube videos about being pro-choice, about being pro-gay marriage, and I felt like I was betraying a lot of people, a lot of my subscribers who had felt like I was such a safe and loving person to help and understand them, and suddenly you're seen as being an enemy and as being so hurtful. It took me over a year into becoming Catholic before I would even say on my YouTube channel that the Catholic Church is against gay marriage and that I'm against abortion. It took me over a year. Not since I started researching into Catholicism a year later, but into being confirmed a year later before I ever publicly admitted that I believed these things, because I knew that I would immediately get canceled by so many people. Number 8, knowing that Christians in your life may go to hell. I've gotten a lot of messages. I was in one really long email communication with someone, and she said the main reason she didn't want to become Catholic is because suddenly a lot of the Protestants in her life who she was so sure would be in heaven, her family members and friends, if she was Catholic, it wouldn't be 100%. So something in the Catechism that I quote all the time: those who through no fault of their own do not know of Christ or his church may obtain eternal salvation. So as Catholics, we are open to lots of non-Catholics being in heaven. We don't know 100%. We don't know 100% about anyone unless someone is a saint because medical miracles have occurred through asking them to pray for us. Besides those people, we have no idea who's in heaven and who's in hell, and who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, and who's in purgatory. We have no idea. And so I'm not saying 100% all of your Protestant family members are going to be in heaven. I'm not saying 100% all the Protestants you know are going to be in hell. Only God knows who is at fault for not researching more into the church and finding Catholicism to be the original church. Only God is the judge on that. But it's a real thing where now I actually pray every single day in my rosary for a long list of people in my life to become Catholic. And it's not only that I want them to enjoy experiencing all these thousands of depths to the faith. This faith is beautiful, and there's so many more sacraments and saints and theology and things to read and ways to pray. It's so amazing. You're so much more spiritually alive. And so I want everyone in my life to experience that. And that's probably 70% of why I pray for this long list of people to become Catholic. But the other 30% is because their salvation could be in jeopardy. And it's scary. As a Protestant, I was so certain, 100%, that my parents and my sister and my best friends who are Christians will all be in heaven together. 100%. I was so certain. We'd all been baptized, we all believed in God, but now I'm not certain. I do not have that certainty at all, and so I have to pray all the time for everyone in my life to become Catholic. And again, the main reason for me is for them to experience the beauty of this faith, but also all of you have the obligation to be praying for everyone in your life who's not Catholic to become Catholic, praying for their souls. Number 9, not being secure in my own salvation. So in my previous church, I grew up in Churches of Christ, which is an offshoot of Presbyterian. We believe that if you were baptized, you were once saved, always saved. So as long as someone was baptized, you are going to heaven. You are a Christian. Now it has to do with constantly working out your salvation and staying close to God. If you intentionally mortal sin, knowing you are mortal sinning, you can go to hell. And so just because I'm a confirmed Catholic and participate in the sacraments and have been baptized and receive the Eucharist and go to confession regularly, there is a chance that 10 years down the road, I leave the faith, I abandon God, I turn my back on God, and I fall into a life away from communion with God and can go to hell. So like I said with all of these, I currently am not scared of this. Like right now, I'm not scared of going to hell. Because I participate in all the sacraments, I go to regular confession. I'm at confession at least every month. Every 3 to 6 weeks, I go to confession. I go to Mass every week. So I trust the church to bring me into heaven, and I think we all should not be terrified of going to hell, but we should also be wary of not knowing the future and not knowing who we will become. Again, I want to read the verse. There is no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear. Fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So if you are constantly fearing for your soul to go to hell, you are not made perfect in love. So bend into the sacraments, participate more in the sacraments, and you will no longer go around fearing hell all the time. Number 10 is kind of a side note, but I was just having a conversation with God is Gray, this YouTube channel. We're making a collaboration that will be out on Monday, and she grilled me a little bit. It was very kind, it was very civil, but she asked me so many questions about the sex abuse crisis. It is horrific and evil and impossible to understand how all of this took place by priests and bishops and our religious leaders who should be so close to God, and the way the church handled it at the time was horrible. And it's so scary coming into a religion that is tainted by the most evil thing, and then suddenly having people in your life wanting you to explain the sex abuse crisis and asking you about the sex abuse crisis as you're becoming Catholic. It should be the most beautiful, exciting thing, but then you have to talk about this thing that is so heavy and complicated. And let me know if you want me to make a whole video talking about the sex abuse crisis, because there are so many facets to talk about, and it's so hard even talking about the sex abuse crisis because I feel like any explanation I give of how the church positively dealt with it or fixed our programs or anything like that, it seems to invalidate the suffering and evil that the survivors had to go through. And I have people really close to me who have gone through sexual abuse and been raped, and the PTSD and anxiety and depression and insecurity that they've dealt with, just knowing that priests have given that same horrific experience to so many minors, it just doesn't make sense. And I know we're ending this video on such a low note, but I think this whole video was kind of a low note in that it's so hard to become Catholic, and while the Catholic Church is perfect in how Christ is in the church, it is very sinful and fallen and evil because there are humans a part of it. I want to say as well that there are a lot of priests and popes who are going to be in hell regarding the sex abuse crisis. I think that's really important to say as well. We obviously don't believe that popes are perfect or priests are perfect. They will be judged by God in hell. And I'm grateful that there is justice eternally for them, as well as we should be putting priests in jail and having justice going on earth as well. So as I said, starting off this video, perfect love drives out fear. And so while all of these issues coming into the church are so hard to deal with and painful when it comes to losing your job, losing relationships, being ostracized socially by other people in your life, the comfort of your relationship with God, being scared that that's not going to stay the same, and being prepared for when it will change, becoming aware that a lot of people in your life may not automatically be going to heaven anymore, and yourself as well, having to constantly work out your salvation, having to constantly pray for other people in your life to become Catholic and to be brought into the kingdom of heaven during the final judgment at the end of the world, and being humbled, majorly humbled, and a little bit humiliated when you come from knowing so much knowledge about the church into being a peasant, which I still am. I'm a toddler Catholic. I said I was a baby Catholic for a long time, but now I'm 2 years old. I'm about to be 2 years old because I was confirmed at Easter and it's Lent now, so I'm about to be a 2-year-old toddler Catholic. I love you guys so much. Make sure to be following me on my Instagram and Twitter. If you're not subscribed already, hit the subscribe button and also click the bell button next to the subscribe button so that you can be on Notification Squad. Again, if you're interested in purchasing Lent-themed merch, click the link below, and I would love so much for you guys to tweet me pictures of the merch. I will see you in my next video. I love you guys so much. Bye!